Hello everyone and welcome to this week's review of Series 12, Episode 3, Orphan 55. This episode was directed by Lee Haven-Jones and written by Ed Heim, who was a writer of last series and wrote the episode It Takes You Away, which I quite enjoyed. It Takes You Away and the mystery behind it and what that storyline had to give to the overall plot of the story. I do like Ed Heim as a writer. I think he's very creative and imaginative with what he does with his writing and how he puts that across on screen. However, I didn't go into this week's episode with very high expectations, unlike the Series 12 opener with the reintroduction of the Master and that. It's fair to say that I think I was cautiously optimistic about this week's episode. Just because I think the underlying message of this story this week was to do with climate change and the fact that if people don't look after the planet as well as they should, this is what will happen. It will the earth will kind of fall away and become a small planet that just kind of deteriorates into nothing. Admittedly, I had to watch this episode twice over before I actually understood what was happening, which is not something I usually have to do, because I usually get what the story is and what the message is upon first watch. However, it didn't happen this time. I'm just after finishing watching it for the second time, and I can confirm I'm still a little bit lost about what was happening in this week's episode. We've been introduced to new monsters, which I think are called the... Let me recheck that for you. We've been introduced to new monsters for this episode called the Dregs. Now these are monsters that kind of need oxygen and carbon dioxide to live off of in order to survive and inhabit the Tranquillity Spa on Earth in the future. And basically what happens is, if the Dregs kind of kill the humans, which they do, they end up killing the majority of the human species in this episode. What will happen to the remaining humans that are left is that the remaining humans will turn into these dreg people and will need oxygen and carbon dioxide in order to survive. Otherwise they'll starve and die out. I did find a little bit of thumb sucking a little bit weird. I knew it was something to do with some sort of worm virus thing that climbs up into the bodily system and then eats away at your internal organs if it's allowed to do that. and yeah, I was a bit. I don't really know what to say on this episode really, because even though I like Ed Heim as a writer and I liked It Takes You Away from last series, I'm a bit kind of meh towards it. That's even after watching it for a second time. Usually I don't have to do that, but I had to do it with this one just to get a clear idea of what was happening, and unfortunately I'm not any clearer. I thought maybe if I watched the episode second time round I might understand it a little bit better and be able to do a review of it. Obviously I'm trying to do a review on it and it's proving unsuccessful. But I think the main underlying message of the story is excuse me, is to do with global warming and climate change. Which is what I gathered from this episode. This week's episode also stars In-Betweeners star James Buckley of In-Betweeners fame. And I think there's a few other guest stars in there. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the credits or whatnot. But yeah, this episode stars James Buckley as a green-haired man with a green beard. Some sort of alien species, I think, that lives in the Tranquillity Spa and works on the Tranquillity Spa as a kind of a maintenance manager along with his son Silurist. I'm intrigued to see what next week's episode brings. Next week we're going to revisit Nikola Tesla and what he did. Obviously in a Doctor Who context, there's obviously some sort of Rachnosy monster involved, but there will be a preview for episode 4 coming soon after this review of episode 3 goes out. So if you enjoyed, oh yes, the rating for this week's episode. Considering my expectations were optimistic and I've been cautiously optimistic about the episode. Obviously I was excited and looking forward to it, but it just seems kind of like a massive kind of step backwards to what we got for the last 2 weeks. For the last week, from last week's episode, it feels like something was missing and there was a step. It was a step backwards, but overall, I think this episode particularly won't do as well as the rest of the series. It just depends on the consolidation figures coming out in the next few weeks. But my overall thoughts and review for this week's episode is probably going to be a 4 out of 10. I think simply because I was cautiously optimistic and I didn't really quite understand where they were going with the story. Yes, I was excited with the new monsters, and yes, there were guest stars in it, but yeah, I think just based on what I saw and having to watch it twice over didn't really help. So yeah, on that basis, this week's episode gets a 4 out of 10 from me. I'm hoping next week's episode and the episodes that follow will improve upon this. I know it's only 3 episodes into series 12, but I do hope that they can step it up a little bit more and give us kind of what we got with Spyfall Part 1 and 2. If you like this video, please click below to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video on social platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that. And also my social platforms, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, will all be linked in the description, as well as my community tab, link to polls and upcoming news about the channel. So if you like this video, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more Doctor Who content on the way very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next few minutes. Bye bye.